we are in close proximity to our raw materials, which is dirt. We use clay to make porcelain toilets. We bring that dirt in from Nashville and Tennessee, and we bring also some dirt in from southern Georgia called kaolin, which is a very important part of the recipe necessary to produce a porcelain product. And we have also recently just built a facility in Monterrey, Mexico. Okay, so there's a very important change in our marketplace. As you saw from our very Asian-centric map that I showed earlier, we've got a very strong presence in Asia. But what we're beginning to do, and have been doing for the past 8-9 years, is we're beginning to, quite frankly, reshore manufacturing back to the US. Now, I manufacture 22,000 toilets a month in my main facility in Atlanta, Georgia. We have 600 employees speaking 6 different languages. Do you know that in that facility, the ceramic toilet that I produce in that facility, I can make cheaper than the facility that I own in Beijing? So we don't need to have Asian sourcing to supply US manufacturing. If you have the right combination of manpower, resources, materials, and technology, you can be, in fact, very sustainable in the US market and a production facility here in the Americas. So we've looked at this, quite frankly, and we've seen an awful lot of headwinds coming toward us from the Asian marketplace. Frankly, we see inflationary pressures being quite significant. We see a lot of taxes and duties being a little bit chaotic and, quite frankly, increasing. We also are seeing a lot of labor increases and currency exchange issues that are impacting the cost of the product we buy from China and the rest of Asia. Not to mention the fact that there's long lead times. It also ties up our cash flow for a longer period of time. We are seeing an advantage of having that production in the Americas to reduce that lead time, to reduce that cash flow, to reduce that opportunity to have costs escalate at the same time when we're trying to be very aggressive in taking costs down to be competitive in this US market. In fact, in 2006, I joined the company in 2003, but in 2006, we were actually buying 66% of everything that we sold in the Americas from Asia. Today, we're only buying 30% of everything we sell in the Americas from Asia. So we've actually flipped that almost entirely over, and our goal is to continue to reduce that 30% down to around 5%, so that we'll have a very strong presence. Now, this also fits in nicely with Toto's philosophy and strategy that it is important for us in the regions that we do business to have a strong manufacturing footprint and presence to be successful with our product. And we have had that result has seen a very nice growth in the US market. Part of that is looking at our entire global stream. Now, I'm not going to go through all this in detail because there's a bit of an eye chart, but certainly we're seeing the opportunity of moving more and more of our production operations out of the Asian marketplace and in production facilities and into the US production facilities. In fact, we're beginning to resurrect, in some cases, some industries that have been a little bit at risk here in the US, like brass manufacturing. There are some brass manufacturers who make faucetry who've closed up shop entirely in the US and moved offshore. We're working now to bring some of that back onshore. Now, another big important factor that's driving what we're doing in our business is water conservation. And you can see from this drought monitor that we're seeing a very significant indication of drought happening in the US. In fact, the expectation is that droughts can continue to worsen over the next couple of years in the south, the southeast, and the southwest. And unfortunately, that's where the majority of the people who come to the U.S. or who are migrating within the U.S. tend to move toward. They tend to move into the south, out of the north. So we're moving into areas where there's not a lot of water. And that has also helped Toto a lot in this U.S. market. That has helped us in this way. In 1992, the U.S. government mandated that lower flush performance products would have to be part of a building solution. Toilets, faucets, showers, and as well urinals. They were mandated to be reduced. Toto was already in Japan using less water, so we were quite successful in bringing that lower flush volume bringing that lower solution to the U.S. market and being successful. At the same time, the U.S. manufacturers struggle with it. Frankly, Kohler, American Standard, Gerber, Eldred, Crane, Universal Rundle, all those companies struggle bringing that product to the market with a lower flush performance. In fact, Toto was so successful that we actually performed a test, and I'm sure everyone's had miso soup before, right? We used soybean paste to make very realistic looking shapes, and we put it into the toilet and we flush it. This technology has helped Toto be quite successful in building and designing a product that will work very effectively with what you truly put into a toilet. When we came to the U.S. market, the test standard was plastic balls, sponges, and little bits of paper. People don't put plastic balls and sponges into a toilet to flush. You put waste. Well, we made that waste, and we were very good at making it. We've been doing it for 35 years. And we now are able to do that with such a clean efficiency that we can reduce water consumption dramatically in the bowl, yet still remove everything that's in there. So this has helped us also help the U.S. EPA drive new legislation for the U.S. market, which is called the WaterSense program. We also have some very interesting technologies. If you looked at the toilets and the urinals in the bathrooms here, you see this silver box up on the top. That silver box is a flush valve. Do you know that every time that flush valve works to flush a toilet or a urinal here at Hartsfield Airport and many installations across the U.S., every time you use that product, it makes its own energy. You don't need a battery, you don't need to have power, it makes its own energy. The same thing happens on the faucet. When you wash your hands at Hartsfield Airport, that faucet at Hartsfield Airport makes its own energy every time you use it. These are the clever technologies that we can bring from other countries. We brought this from Japan and help be successful in breaking into the U.S. market. For example, at Hartsfield Airport, I mentioned, Hartsfield Airport, 115,000 passengers per day on average. 56% are women, 44% are men. We actually help them reduce their water consumption by taking their toilets down and lower flush performance and their urinals down. We help them save 3.7 million gallons of water a month. That's 44 million gallons a year by just changing the flush performance on the toilets and the urinals with no change in performance. It's also important in this U.S. market to have very good-looking designs. In fact, we manufactured, you'll notice here in the fourth picture over on the top, we have a toilet that we've actually eliminated the rim holes. Much easier to clean. So we want to bring these kind of technologies as well and really help the market continue to grow. Clever, high-end looks like you'd see here at the W Hotel. And we've also brought a lot of innovation in our products. This chart actually gives you a quick description. I'm not going to go through all the details, but all of these innovations did not exist here in the U.S. market up to this point. Toto introduced these, and we've seen the competition begin to follow along on those innovations. We've also brought to the U.S. market a lot of technology that helps us be sustainable. Because it's not just about bringing clever products, it's how you manufacture the product not only profitably, but sustainably. We have put in a variety of changes to our process, and we actually believe that there's no real silver bullet to the issues of environmental sustainability and how you're going to be successful. But there is silver buckshot, which means you've got lots of little pieces of silver that you can employ to be successful in killing the beast. The beast is our challenges on consumption of environmental resources, coal, natural gas, and so forth. So all these claims, including we were the first company in the world to engage UPS in carbon neutral shipments. We do about 350, 400 shipments per day out of our facility. Every single one is carbon neutral. We were the first company in the world to do that with UPS. We also, on the south side of Atlanta, we, as I said, speak 6 different languages with our 600 employees. Curbside recycling is very poor. These are first-generation Americans. These are people who want to do something better in their lives. They work hard in our facilities. But we also invite them to bring their recyclables from home into our factory. We do things like asking them to bring in their cardboard and plastic and paper, and we'll recycle it for them. That makes our employees very excited because they can actually be engaged in a very fundamental, visceral way in improving their environment. We track our carbon emissions. We track our recycling of paper and cardboard. We also look for how we measure our success with a variety of methods using both governmental and non-governmental agencies, and as a result of that, we receive a variety of awards and recognition for the efforts that we put in place. You know, for me, there's the three bottom lines. It's profitability, it's the people, and the planet. And what are we doing to take care of those things and be successful from a sustainability standpoint? If Toto can do that, we're going to continue to be successful. Part of that includes running what's called an LCA. An LCA is a life cycle assessment that actually measures and gauges the carbon footprint of every product we produce. Everything I produce in Atlanta, Georgia, I have a carbon footprint. I can tell you exactly what content of carbon is associated with every aspect of the manufacturing, procurement, and shipment strategies for that product going out. And in fact, for a 1.6 gallon toilet, it's 474 pounds of carbon. Being able to know that means that if I understand my carbon content and I associate carbon to cost, I can begin to reduce that cost. So what we want to try and do is continue to reduce it. And if we can reduce it and drive down our consumptive use, in fact, my engineers have a mandate. They can introduce no new product to the marketplace unless it has a lower carbon footprint than the product it replaces. So having said that, if you haven't seen Toto, go to Vegas. You'll see lots of Toto. Because of the 25 largest hotels in the world, 18 are in Vegas, and we're in the majority of them. You'll also see us in airports around the world. Another good indication of where you'll see us in public venues. Habitat for Humanity is also a very important part of our business, and we really strive to be part of a very strong support structure for our community and the society around us. And most importantly of all, let's make sure we take care of that triple bottom line. Thank you.
That's a hard act to follow with all the eye charts and the toilet stories. So I'll do my best. So from toilets to wireless. I bought a lot of content. Okay, so this is the PowerPoint. Okay, great. So I'm going to talk to you about reverse outsourcing. And to me, reverse outsourcing is a celebration of knowledge. The power of knowledge everywhere. It's a premium a country pays to employ that knowledge. So what does Avion do, my company? I founded it in 1996. We build wireless networks around the world. Some of our biggest customers in the US are AT&T, Verizon Wireless, Sprint Nextel. In 2004, the Atlanta Business Chronicle did an article entitled Atlanta's Reverse Outsourcing Firm Sends IT Knowledge Overseas. And I think I was one of the few firms that probably coined the terminology reverse outsourcing. My company is very active in building wireless networks. And like I said, we had this opportunity in 2002 to build the wireless network in India for a company called Reliance. I don't know how many of you are familiar, it's like the AT&T of India. And they were rolling out the CDMA network. And as most of you know, CDMA is a technology based out of the United States and I think owned by Qualcomm in California. So we had deployed the network here in the US and Reliance wanted to do it in India. So whom do they come to? To the US. So they selected two big OEMs, which is the original equipment manufacturers, Alcatel-Lucent and Nortel. So we went with Alcatel-Lucent and Nortel to build the wireless network in India. We took 80 expat engineers from the United States to India. To me, that is reverse outsourcing. So when you think about it, when we think about outsourcing, we many times think about offshoring. We think offshoring is cheap labor, right? And you know, speed, obviously, at least in the past. Right now, of course, the whole landscape has changed. But when you think about it, 10 years ago. But in this case, when you look at reverse outsourcing, they paid a premium for the US worker in India. we would pay each of them almost double to go work in India. They would live in 5-star hotels. Each one of them had a chauffeur-driven car, and they went around the country deploying the network. So if we have the knowledge, right, if we work in cutting-edge technologies, it doesn't matter where we are in the world, with globalization and thinking of the world as a global village, the knowledge workers always a premium. So the main message, I think, from 2002, for me personally, was if you have the right kind of skill set, and if you're working in leading edge technology, doesn't matter if there is a downturn where we are. In the United States in 2002, when I tell people I'm in telecom, people look at me and say, aren't you glad you're still around? Yeah, thankfully. But this is the secret for our survival during the downturn, is this reverse outsourcing. So we also took about 18 different nationalities to deploy this network in India. And then that's something we've been doing all along to present. So the next thing is coming to the 3G technology, right? UMTS. So Guam Wireless, they wanted to build out a brand new UMTS network. Did they go to China? Did they go to India? No, they came to the United States. They came here, they did a bid in the US with the US companies, and one of my clients, Nokia, won the project in Guam, and Avion went with Nokia to do a complete greenfield build-out of the UMTS network in Guam. Guam, as most of you may know, is a US territory. Apparently, our military switch sits in Guam, but it's actually on the other side of the globe. So it's like going to Asia, like going to China. So it's long ways off, but it pretty much, if you're a US citizen, then you can work in Guam as well. Similarly, Bermuda Digital. They had a brand new 3G UMTS network rollout. They came to the United States because when you think about the US, in terms of innovation and technology, we are leaders. And most of the developing countries, when they want to get into, I would say get into the leading edge technology, many times they come to the US to get the workforce from here. So we have several such stories about where we have built these kind of networks around the world. And now most recently in Brazil, they're going to build the 4G technology. So for those of you who are a little bit new for telecom, I'll probably give you a one-on-one lesson on what is 2G, 3G, and 4G. Because many times when I'm speaking in panels, people have said, why do you always talk about these things and not explain it? So I'll take a little bit of time. So let's just go back. All of us have mobile phones. It's a great experience. So when you look at 2G, it's just voice, right? You had your flip phone and you would talk, and all we were trying to do at that time was making sure your calls don't drop when you go in the MARTA station, not the MARTA tunnel and those kind of things. So we would do in-building to be sure that, your phones are working. And then comes 2.5G, which is kind of a transition between voice and data. We still could not have all the data capacity in terms of what you have today, but we could still text or send an SMS to each other. And then came 3G. If you look at 3G and 4G, it's very comparable. 3G gave us the device, right? We don't call it a phone anymore, we call it a device. You get your data downloads, and then, everything you're doing today is 3G. None of us really have the experience of using a true 4G network yet. Though most of the operators say that it's been launched, it's not optimized yet. So with your 3G, you're able to download movies, say in 4 minutes, 5 minutes, or you're able to send endless data across. And our kids, of course, with the iPhones, even if we don't have it, we make sure our kids have, the best of the devices available in the market. I have 2 teenagers. They get everything before I get it. So we are now building what they call the 4G network. So when you look at 3G, the technology is pretty much CDMA and UMTS. The best thing about 4G or the network, it's going to be technology agnostic. So you're going to have LTE and you're going to have WiMAX. But when LTE is going to be pretty much the world standard going forward, because there isn't much support for WiMAX, which was a technology supported by Intel when it got started. And right now in the US, it's been adopted by Clearwire and Sprint Nextel. But going forward, LTE is going to have no technology or equipment tied to it. Once you're in the LTE network, the good thing for the operators, they don't have to be investing constantly in hardware. It's just mostly software upgrades. So what does the 4G do for consumers like us? Speed, data speed. That's all it is. You'll be able to download a movie in 60 seconds. You're going to be able to use your iPad and more devices, more tablets. It's going to support innovation, it's going to support growth, it's going to empower us as consumers. So that's what 4G all about. Any questions? So also the other thing we're doing is in our company, obviously when we say we're a telecommunications company, there is no company today without technology. So we do business intelligence visualization. Most recently, we did it for AT&T here in the US. We got a call about a month ago from the counterparts in Australia, and they said, we want to do this, we want this tool. And guess where we're building it? In our backyard here in Georgia for Australia. So would you call that reverse outsourcing? Yeah, I just want to go back to today's reality here. So we want to talk about the notion of outsourcing and offshoring. And one of the approaches has been basically universal among industrial nations, that there remains a level of detraction. And when the President of the United States comes to India and says that outsourcing is a dynamic two-way relationship that's creating jobs, growth, and higher living standards in both countries. Many of the economies that have been characterized as emerging have dropped the tag and now are full-fledged players in the global marketplace. Let's look at outsourcing, offshoring, beyond the two usual suspects, India and China. Let's look at Latin America. It's key strategic location for the US market. The Brazil story, obviously, the BRIC treaty, Brazil, India, Russia, China, they have a treaty. They are pretty much a mature player. It's difficult to call them emerging anymore, but there are countries around that, Mexico, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Peru, all provide an attractive mix of culture, knowledge, good rates, and a good labor pool, and strong government support, which is very important. And it's great to see this awakening around the world, where the government wants to support insourcing or put themselves on the radar for outsourcing opportunities. The success of India as an offshore beacon is obvious, but India has a lot of competition now in the global marketplace. There are other countries that have come up to par in terms of technology. They've strengthened their university systems. I would say university systems is probably, I come from a very academic background as well. My father is a management professor, and I grew up in a university environment all my life, so I don't know how it is here, but when you grow up in Asia, you pretty much live in a quarters from a university. So I wake up every day in the morning and I would see the university building, so that's how I was raised. And I went to South Africa, and this is about 4 years ago. And one of the things I found was, I was part of a US mission that went to South Africa, and they wanted us to go and meet the entrepreneurs in South Africa and counsel them on working on global opportunities, growing within the region. So this was when President Bush was president. And he wanted to bring Africa into a NAFTA kind of fold, free trading, to be able to exchange information and easier visas for them to come here and vice versa. So when I went to Africa, one of the things that was amazing was the younger generation, I'm talking about maybe the millennials, people from 25 to 30, they come out of a great school system. It is mostly the British school system, they speak English, and the university system is so strong that it breeds innovation. So this one kid comes up to me and he talks about, he has an application, you just send an SMS and it turns the street lights off. I mean, to me, in a country where there's, it's a steep climb for just about everything, when you see this kind of innovation, you obviously have to applaud the university system in South Africa for the great work they've done, and for the innovation that they breed within the university system. So obviously, besides India and China, like I said, the emerging markets or the emerged markets, there are a lot of new players emerging right now, and I think there's just a lot more option in terms of offshoring. It's funny, I can't see there now, nor can I see there, so I don't know. So again, in terms of offshoring, I think there are 4 things that have happened. Standardization. So when you look at standardization, it's about packaging, right? It's like, okay, if you need these kind of services, this is a standardized rate. So I think there is more global standardization and price stabilization, if you will. And then automation. One of the biggest things is automation, right? Once you have automation, the prices automatically come down. I just need to go back to the last slide. Sorry. I just bought a lot of content, so it's all right, just in case somebody wants the content. So in terms of next steps, or what's next? Yeah, that's good, thank you. Offshoring to America. I know it sounds like, what are you all talking about offshoring to America? So I had an opportunity to go to Fitzgerald, Georgia, about 2 years ago. The mayor of Fitzgerald, Georgia, if you didn't know, was the longest sitting mayor in the history of the United States. He's been a mayor for 33 years. But anyway, he hosted us over there. And what they're trying to promote, along with the rest of the Army bases, is host your call centers here. You know, we have a lot of people here who are willing to work at very comparable rates around the world, and you can host your call center here. The southern accent is really sweet, nice to hear, and and we will give you, consolidated pricing on buildings, and we have a technical school right next to our, in our city, and we should be able to find you good labor pool, and we should also be able to, employ the wives of the, army, the army folks. So very soon you'll be surprised. Maybe we have call centers all over the United States, and they will be offshoring it to us. So just think about the scenario, because it's coming, it's there. I mean, the mayor, when he approached us, he actually came to Georgia to meet with us, and he said, we want you to come and pay a visit to Fitzgerald, Georgia. A small city like Fitzgerald, Georgia can make a proposal like this. And if we put our minds together, we can probably be doing a lot of things and insourcing a lot and still making a premium for it, because we are leading edge in technology.